sponsors.
Live from the Xfinity Studios at WVON. We're your original social media. You're listening to Inspirational Perspective with Linal Harris on 1690, The Talk of Chicago.
Good morning, Chicago. You're listening to Inspirational Perspective. I'm your host, Linal Harris, Chicago's very own life coach, right here on WVON 1690 AM, The Talk of Chicago. Inspirational Perspective on your radio is all about murdering mediocrity and living the best life possible. So, as I ask you every Sunday morning, are you living the best life possible? And this is the place to be to explore that possibility. Well, good Sunday morning, everyone. And this is officially the last Sunday morning of March. Man, time just keeps moving on. And we have a phenomenal show planned for you today. From the 7 to 8 o'clock hour, you'll have myself, Emmanuel Leonard, who you all heard 2 weeks ago introduce the topic of purpose. Good morning, Emmanuel.
Good morning, Linal. How are you?
I'm well. So he's in the studio with me as well. And then at the 8 a.m. hour, Damon Williams will be with us. We'll explore the magic of laughter. We'll learn a few things about Damon that we don't know. And we'll explore his 25-year career as an entertainer. I mean, that's huge. I got some questions in terms of his consistency, persistence, the resistance he's had. But looking forward to that, and we'll probably laugh. Knowing Damon, we'll probably be in here chuckling quite a bit. So looking forward to that. But in the meantime, one of the things that I want to do is I want to back up a little bit, because one of the things I noticed is last week's show, man, I'm still in a lot of ways processing my experience in Ghana. And even processing last week's show, man. And a lot of you were calling in, and I didn't get a chance to get to your comments, your questions, when Bishop Lance Davis, Domoti Pongo, and Deborah Farmer joined us. And then also Shalanda Lobin, she called in and shared. But there was so much happening that I didn't get a chance to get to phone calls, because I knew that not only was I full from the trip, but I knew each of the guests I had in the studio, they were full. So I do want to open up the lines and take any questions, any thoughts you all had about the show last week. If you weren't listening, the title of the show was Black Identity, A Return to Africa. We talked about my experience, our collective experience in Africa, in Ghana in particular. And, how we visit the slave castles, the slave river. We learned a lot about our history that we didn't know, which was still surprising for me, because I read a lot of books. And, Manuel, what stuck out the most for you from that show, man?
There was so many good parts you were talking about last Sunday. But for me, and I told you this before, The thing that stuck out to me when you guys were talking, I kept on thinking, wasn't it black people who sold Africans to other Africans? And I was kind of confused, like, why would they even do that if they knew that these white people would come in and hurt these people? So I don't know if you can talk about that. You gave me an answer, but I wonder if anybody else out there was thinking the same thing I was thinking.
So I'm sure they were. I'm sure they were. And when we were there, one of the things that was talked about was the different ethnicities with Africans, right? And how these tribes, in a lot of ways they were isolated and they were just among themselves. So they saw their family, the people that they needed to take care of, as just the people around them. Now, interesting point. I think in a lot of ways, African Americans carry that particular, if you call preference, in terms of I only roll with my clique, I only kick it with my clique. Man, something's happening to that brother. And I think we're beginning to wake up and say, wait a second, if that's happening to the brother over there, that could happen to me. I need to do something about what's happening to the brother over there, even if it's just taking out my camera and recording it, right? I mean, so I think in some ways we're waking up and we're shifting in terms of our preference for just people that are in our collective family, collective circle, collective clique. But that's really what happened over there. And then the other thing is, these tribes, they were trying to gain some type of advantage over one another, right? Yeah. And so if I'm trading with Europeans and nobody's ever seen Europeans, then, and they have guns, they have gunpowder, they have blankets, they have alcohol, they have these things that, are new and different and that I can use to trade and, and increase my overall prosperity and wealth in my circle. Then that's what drove a lot of that. So it's something for us to be aware of now, right? I think one of the questions that we were talking about on the trip is how many of us are willing to have some type of financial gain at the expense of our brother or sister.
Wow.
Right? And it's something to think about. Yeah. I mean, even when you look at the medical establishment and some of what's happening here, man, by the way, shout out to Divine Healing. I love that show. I mean, when I'm driving in the morning, I listen to them. And if you all are listening, you need to start dubbing yourselves as health and wellness coaches, because they're coaching us on our health and wellness and talking about how we can use herbs, how we can use food, nutrition to take care of our bodies, right? But my point is, in terms of medicine, right? If I'm a black man or black woman in medicine, am I willing to push this medicine on my people when I know what it may do to them, right? For instance, African Americans don't disperse mercury the same way our Caucasian partners do, right? So if I'm an African American doctor or pediatrician, am I telling my African American clients that, like, hey, your child will not disperse mercury the same way a Caucasian child will? That's going to lead to higher rates or potential or the likelihood of autism, right, in your child, right? Because yes. Well, my son's 9 months and I got 4 books on it, so I know it now, right? But that's what I mean, right? Are we willing to take financial gain for the advancement of, financial gain for our advancement when our own people, our brothers and sisters, may suffer as a result, right? So, and I think it's a question we still got to ask. We could look at Africans and say, they sold us into slavery. They're a big part of that, right? But in some ways, we're still, the great question, man, we still have that behavior here.
Yeah. So I guess we have to be careful about not getting caught up in benefiting off of our people. That's right.
That's why purpose matters, right? And so one of the things, so Emmanuel is the creative director at Inspirational Perspective, does a phenomenal job. As you all heard 2 weeks ago, the recording that Emmanuel produced when I was in Africa. So talented young man, happy to have him on the team. And one of the things we talked about was purpose. And this is one of the reasons why purpose is so important, right? Because it becomes not only our moral compass, but it becomes our compass in life, compass in how we make decisions and things like that. So I don't know if you have anything you want to add on that, Emmanuel.
Yeah, well, I took the Murder Mediocrity course.
Okay.
And out of taking it, I was able to figure out that my purpose was to build meaningful connection, to uplift, encourage, and edify, and build people up.
Nice.
But that was through taking that course and learning from you over 2 years I've been working for you. And so just from learning about you, I was able to take my purpose, go to it every morning and look at it and remind myself, okay, so this is what I'm living for. This is why God is leading me in the way that he's leading me to build people up, encourage people, help people. So
nice.
Yeah.
Very nice. No, and thanks for sharing that, man. And so that you all know, my purpose is your success. I say it often. My purpose is to help myself and others live the best life possible. And I don't know if a lot of people know my story. I mean, I came on Sunday mornings. I kind of just went full on into doing the work that I do. But I don't know if you all know, but I didn't speak well. When I was so you speak well, Emmanuel. When I was your age, I was still, you're a little older than I was when I began to figure it out. But when I was about 22, 23, man, it was hard for me to share or articulate my thoughts verbally. Really, really hard. So even now, it's still fascinating to me that I have a radio show. It's still fascinating to me that I can right now, I'm not looking at a script. I mean, we're having a free flow conversation. I'm articulating my thoughts. In a lot of ways, that's a miracle, man. But the miracle for me was purpose, right? I knew that my purpose was to help other people. And in order to help other people, I had to become a good communicator. And so I sat in front of that television night after night and repeated everything they said on the 10 o'clock news. I did that for months, man, until my words began to make sense with what was happening in my brain, right? And I told Emmanuel, so Emmanuel, he edits every show. And so he gets to hear my verbal blunders. And so I told him, I said, I still struggle sometimes. And I think you can probably attest to listening to it, the struggles I may have from time to time.
Occasionally I hear a little stutter, but for the most part, you're doing pretty good.
Okay. Yeah. So I share that because there are a lot of people who have dreams and they have clarity of purpose. And what they haven't done is they haven't merged their spiritual power to that purpose to develop themselves into the person they're supposed to be so they can go and be their purpose on the planet, right? And I've had that wonderful opportunity. As a matter of fact, yesterday, I attended a TEDx, and this is a really good example. So it was TEDx Willow Creek. Shout out to Dolores Bulligan, who produced the entire thing. She had a phenomenal staff. A lot of powerful women on the stage yesterday. I mean, a lot of powerful women on the stage yesterday. And Dolores came to me and said, Linal, I have a 10-minute spot because we're moving faster than I thought we would, and I would love for you to go out and address the crowd. Now, people think that I'm this talented speaker, right? And I can just show up and talk whenever. It don't work like that for me, right? Speaking is a strength. And that's one of the things I talk about in the purpose course. Speaking is a strength, but it's not a talent. A talent is something that you are endowed with. It just comes natural. I watch some of these preachers, right? And they are talented speakers. I'm like, man, that was good. T.D. Jakes is a talented speaker. There's a difference. I'm a strong speaker because I've strengthened that competence over time. All right. And by the way, any of us can strengthen any competence that we want to strengthen. So she comes to me and she says, I want you to speak for 10 minutes. I said, about what? She says, whatever. Well, that's not good. I mean, there's a lot of things I can talk about, right? So I started thinking about some things I can say. Because mind you, this is a TEDx stage. This ain't just, any stage. I mean, TEDx, people are not saying and ah and pausing and thinking. I mean, they really know. They've prepared for months. By the way, shout out to my wife, Pam Harris, and her sister, Agape Rogers, who coached half of the speakers. If you guys don't know, my wife is she's the president of SMG Speakers, and this is part of the work that she does, representing nationally recognized speakers, as well as coaching speakers and individuals who want to develop their speaking careers. So my point is, I'm supposed to get on the stage, right, this TEDx stage. So then, as I'm about to go on later that afternoon, she comes to me and she says, hey, I got to cut your time down to 5 minutes. I'm like, what? And this is like literally before I go out, right? And so I went out. It was a great job. People were like, oh, that was awesome. What they don't know is what's going on in my mind. Like, man, I have to cut this. I hope it makes sense. But this is from someone who 20 years ago, there's no way I could have done that. No way. And I've developed that over years, right? To now where I'm a speaker, radio host, etc. So if you're listening and you have an aspiration, do not give up on that aspiration. As a matter of fact, one of the things I'm going to talk about at the bottom of the hour is how to address mental constraints. How to address mental constraints. But we got a phone call. James, good morning. You're on the air.
Good morning. How are you?
I'm well.
I didn't get to hear the last week's talk show, but I was just listening to the idea that blacks, participated in the enslavement of our people in history, and not calling to refute that. What I think that we might be overlooking, and I'm not saying you are, because you really haven't dove into it much. You just explained where you came from last week. Mm-hmm. But what I think we may be falling short at is that that's just not a black phenomenon. The European has had wars within themselves over time. However, I think what they have mastered is the ability to understand what makes an organization successful, what makes a nation successful, what makes a society successful is that you have to create it, you have to put in place mechanisms that is able to punish as well as bless your members beyond what any other outside source can do. Mm-hmm. And if you do that, you can sustain, unity. You can sustain brotherhood, because any brotherhood can be broken up if an outside source can come in and entice that brotherhood along with protection.
Absolutely.
And so beyond the fabric that the society in which he come from. Mm-hmm. So that's what we need to master, because I think it's a human instinct to go with one's self-preservation, and it's not just unique to black.
Absolutely.
But we need to master that human instinct. We need to master the concept of creating a society in which we can protect ourselves from outside influence.
And you know what, James? I agree with you. And that's one of the reasons I said that's why purpose is so important, because I believe purpose becomes the mechanism that grounds us and has us think about these things differently. But I will share this. While we were in Ghana, one of the things that we learned is that there were particular tribes that the British had a difficult time conquering, even with guns. One was, in particular, the Ashanti tribe. And the Dutch were their enemy. But to conquer this tribe of brown people, they came together because of their interest on the continent. And so what you said in terms of their ability to organize, right, and see the bigger picture, they did that. They put their differences aside for the moment, because they're like, look, there's a lot of gold on this Gold Coast, and we need to get into this interior so we can get this gold. So once we beat them down, we can keep fighting, right? But
I think you're right, but I don't think it's just that isolation. If you go into the history, when you go back to Aristotle, Socrates, and all of them, they came from the continent, and they went back to their own and tried to teach them. So they knew who these people were, and they understood the concept of racism. Yeah. They understood that. So it wasn't just for the booty. It was for sustaining, conquering of these people. And so, but one of the things that they mastered, what I was making a point on, and not just having a concept of purpose, somebody's going to be able to protect you.
True.
You understand what I'm saying?
Yep,
so
got it.
we don't have that, and we need to master that.
Thanks for the phone call, brother. Nice, great perspective. Okay, I got Sel. Sel, how are you, man? Good morning.
Good morning. Good morning. Linal, I first want to thank you and your guests last week. I have never been moved by a group or an individual sharing their experience of going to the continent as I was last week.
Wow.
I listened to the show with my eyes closed because I was trying to imagine and visualize the many things that you all shared with us. And brother, it was just awesome. Just awesome, awesome, awesome. To the point that I'm committed to going with you all next October, is it?
This upcoming October, actually.
Right.
Yeah.
And I'm going to sit beside Perry and hold her hand all the way.
if she lets you.
If she lets you.
You're gonna make Perry call in because I know she's listening.
Oh yeah. Well, yeah. She's a disciple as I am, but I'm your salutatorian in your class.
I appreciate that. Yeah.
Last week, one of the females, said reverse the curse, and I thought that was so dynamite.
Yeah.
Powerful.
Yeah.
In terms of what our responsibility is to ourselves. Secondly, I want to say thank you to the young brother who you just introduced that pulled that show together. I enjoyed that so much listening to you all. I tried to call in and realized, no, you're not back there.
Yeah, it's recording. Yeah.
Yeah, it was dynamite, just dynamite. I hope that more ministers will start listening to your show, if any are already, prior to going into the pulpit.
Why do you say that, Sel? Why? I mean, I'm just curious.
You deal with raw, unadulterated truth.
Okay.
I think it would help them to understand what their purpose is while they're in the pulpit trying to share up a message that they claim is from God, and it would help them to fulfill that mission of wanting to be understood. I think that is the ultimate purpose of anybody who speaks in front of a group of people is to be understood.
Absolutely, yeah. Agreed.
If not,
agreed.
You have wasted your time.
Yeah.
But I'm grateful for what you're doing. I'm looking forward to seeing you and others at this revolutionary gathering that you organized for us.
March 31st. March 31st.
Yes, sir.
And a matter of fact, we're going to take a quick break in a moment. But March 31st, the Murder Mediocrity Summit. Sel, thanks so much for the comments, my brother, and I look forward to meeting you.
One last thought.
Okay.
I have some grandkids that I'm going to start demanding that they get up on Sunday morning to listen to you and to do a review with an essay for which I intend to pay them.
Wow.
As a way of trying to guide them a little better than I'm doing. I'm not as accomplished of a grandfather as I would like to be in terms of just bringing my grandchildren along who are 11 and 13.
Got it.
But I appreciate you.
I appreciate you too, and appreciate the phone call and the thought. Definitely.
Yes, sir.
All right.
Thank you very much.
All right.
Bye now.
All right. Nice thought from Sel. And the preacher should listen to, man. That was a compliment. I coach a few pastors, though. Hey, man, every leader needs some type of support. And by the way, that position is one of the loneliest positions, man. In coaching these ministers, what I'm finding is there's a lot of passion in terms of the work that they do, but also a lot of loneliness because they're misunderstood, right? Especially when you're receiving a message that nobody else can hear, right? And you have a vision that nobody else can see, and you're trying to lead people. And by the way, this is not just pastors; these are most revolutionaries, right? Are trying to lead people towards a vision that they can't see, and everybody has everybody has a point of view, right? But they're not necessarily willing to do the work, but they will definitely provide some commentary. That's a tough position to be in. So shout out to the pastors who are listening this morning, and thank you all for what you do, especially if you are true. If you're not true, I'm not talking to you. All right. So, all right, let's take a quick break. And when we come back, we'll talk about mental constraints. And then at 8 a.m., we're going to be laughing with Damon Williams. We'll be right back.
Are you tired of your job but feel trapped by the paycheck? Are you grappling with your personal identity and who you really are? Are you looking for tips and tools that will enhance your life holistically? If you answered yes to any of these questions, then come to the first annual Murder Mediocrity Summit on Saturday, March 31st. Come to be educated, empowered, and emboldened in taking your life to the next level. At the Murder Mediocrity Summit, Linal Harris and other powerful guest speakers will share insights on the 4 pillars of life, achieving your goals, how to stay committed no matter what, and so much more. You will dance, you will laugh, you will learn, you will cry. You will leave being inspired and motivated to live your best life. Go to murdermediocrity.com and purchase your tickets to the Murder Mediocrity Summit on Saturday, March 31st. Purchase your tickets today.
All right, we're back. So real quick, the Murder Mediocrity Summit, by the way, last night I did a count. I didn't do a count this morning, but I did a count. 26 seats left. 26 seats. If you haven't purchased your ticket, but you have an intention to, you've been telling yourself, I'm going to get this ticket, I'm going to get this ticket. It's time to go to murdermediocrity.com, purchase the ticket. And when I tell you that this is going to be an amazing summit, man. So yesterday, Dr. Camila Stevenson did a TEDx at the TEDx Willow Creek, okay? She rocked it. I mean, man, it was so good. And by the way, they put her last.
Wow.
Okay.
I mean, she's really good.
Yeah, they put her last to hold the crowd, okay? And she did her job. Okay, she did her job. I was in the back because I came on a little bit before her. And I was in the back and I was watching on the screen, man, and I was just like, I was just, just vibing with energy, because I know she's going to be bringing that same energy, that same message to the summit, and she's opening the summit, okay? She's opening. So, I mean, if those of you who are coming, I hope you are excited. You are about to get, in terms of the 4 pillars of life, information and knowledge that will change your life. Seriously. So, by all means, this is your opportunity to transform. Make sure you go to www.murdermediocrity.com and purchase your tickets today.
Yeah, because this is the last week.
This is the last week, and it's gonna sell out. I mean, it's 26 seats left, 26. And I was talking to Love on Facebook Live. We had a Facebook Live session. I had a Facebook Live session with Matt Sapala, both of whom are speakers at the summit. And Love was like, I know you're not going to put extra seats out so you can sell a few more tickets. And I'm like, you're right. I don't do business that way, right? I want to make sure that it's comfortable for the people who bought those tickets. I want to make sure that it's homey and everybody feels at home because they're going to be there for the day. Right, so we're not going to overcrowd it. It's going to be a nice space. So if you want to be there, you need to go ahead and purchase that ticket right now. Okay, so let's talk about mental constraints real quick. And by the way, I'm going to use some humor. Because somebody on Facebook said, man, last week was so heavy. We could use some laughter. And that's one of the beautiful things about laughter. Laughter, it heals the soul, man. And last week's conversation was heavy. It was necessary. But it was heavy. And one of the things I said is, I aim to motivate and inspire, but I also, more importantly, want to bring critical information and knowledge that we need to move forward. So, Emmanuel, have you ever seen this picture on social media? It's a picture, and it's a horse. And the horse is tethered to a plastic lawn chair. And that's all it was. It was like, you give a caption, right? The first time I saw it, I laughed out loud. Have you seen this picture?
I have not seen this picture, but I've heard about it. I think I know what you're talking about.
All right, so it's a horse, and it's tethered to this lawn chair, right? And some of the captions, I mean, they were really funny, but they're not when you think about it, right? One of the captions said, "This is you." Right? I was like, whoa, right? But unfortunately,
that's a lot of people.
That's a lot of people, right? I mean, that's all they said. Like, this is you in caps, right? This is you.
Wow.
You know, you're a horse tethered to a lawn chair, so you're powerful. You can go anywhere you want to go, but you think you stuck, but you're not. Okay, you're not. All right. There were a few other comments that I can't repeat on the radio, but nonetheless, it was funny. But at the same time, it gave this mental picture. I mean, this actual picture of what having a mental constraint really is, right? And whenever I see this picture, right, because it still floats around, I still take a minute to read the comments because the comments are always hilarious. But in some ways, it also makes me sad. It also makes me sad because there are many of us that are just like that horse, tethered to a plastic lawn. I mean, we can walk away. I mean, there's some people in relationships that way, right? They can just walk away, but they're suffering, right? There's people at jobs where they're like, oh, I have to be here, but the mental constraint has them stuck, right? In so many ways. So we can laugh at pictures like this, but the majority of people who see this picture seem to appreciate the hilarity of the photo and the horse's situation and its correlation to human behavior. So I always ask myself, where am I stuck? Like, what are my mental constraints? And I'm going to ask you, man, I know Emmanuel's like, man, whenever I go on the air with this guy, he's always asking me these deep questions that I got to tell everybody in public. But I think about my own mental constraints. One of my mental constraints was having a job. I felt like I needed a job. I had to have a job. And I refer to it as golden handcuffs, man, because I was in a job where I made good money, but I didn't want to be there anymore because I knew my purpose was taking me to the next level, right? And in order to go to the next level, I had to leave, but I was afraid. I was afraid that I would lose this quote unquote security, right? And I say quote unquote because it's really an illusion. I mean, this Monday, unfortunately, people are going to get some pink slips, and they ain't going to have a job no more. And they've been holding on to something that's letting go of them, right? And they should have been pursuing their purpose and trying to take their lives to the next level, a mental constraint. So that was one of my mental constraints. And even today, I'm still looking for where are my mental constraints. Another mental constraint that I distinguished in Africa was the constraint of becoming a victim sometimes, right? Because we all get victimized, right? My wife's gonna beat me up, but she gets victimized when I leave the toilet seat up. Right? And so let me tell you what I mean by victimization, right? And why I could use that example.
No, I get that, though, because my sisters are the same way.
Right. They get victimized, right? Like, hey, it's not that big of a deal. Just put it down. Don't be a victim. But here's my point. Whenever you're becoming a victim of something, that means that it's controlling you emotionally, right? So when we talked about the slaves last week in the slave castle, those were victims. I mean, there was nothing they could do. And whatever despair they felt was despair that they had every right to feel because they were in a desperate, horrible situation, right? Those were victims. And what I learned about myself is that in no place in my life have I ever been there. So I can't allow situation to make me a victim. Situations and circumstances to make me a victim. And that's one of the mental constraints that I was able to release as a result of this trip. And when I tell you Ghana's transformational, it's the reason I'm taking 10 to 15 people with me back in October. More information to come, by the way. But when I tell you Ghana's transformational, that's how it transformed me. So what mental constraints, have you identified in yourself over the years?
For me, I think getting caught up in how I feel. Like, I know I need to get something done, and I tell myself, I don't feel like doing this right now. That's the thing that I have to fight, knowing that whether I feel like it or not, there's a purpose on my life, and so I have to go forward anyways.
Yeah.
So that's what I have to always concentrate, whether I'm sad or angry or whatever. It's like I have to look past that and get done with the things I need to get done. So that's what I have to deal with all the time.
Nice. And by the way, you spoke to a bunch of people out there. Because even now, you have to move past how you feel. One of the things I say, and when I teach this workshop, Purpose, Power, Possibility, is how I feel is very real, right? But it ain't. And the reason how you feel is not real is because, most emotions are temporary, man. Matt Zapala, he had this quote on his Instagram where he said, having a bad day is simply milking a bad moment all day, right? So you have this moment in the morning, and then you like, I'm having a bad day. All you did was milk that moment all day long. You just kept reliving that moment, and so you messed up your day, right? Even if somebody bumped the back of your car, spilled coffee on you, did something, you were a victim of a situation or a circumstance, you still milk that moment all day long, because at any point you could transform your day just by choosing, right? And so I love that quote by Matt Zapala. But here's the deal. If you saw the picture, I'm sure people saw the picture, did you take a moment to ensure that the horse tethered to the plastic chair didn't represent a set of similar mental constraints in your own life? Because as human beings, it's so easy for us to identify when someone else may have a shortcoming, right? We're really good at external processing. Like, look at Emmanuel over there. He should have did this morning. He should have did that, right? We're really good at that. And our default tendency is to focus on the opportunities of others. That's our default tendency. One of the things I'm going to do, I'm going to give it away at the summit, is after Love McPherson gets up, because she's talking about relationships, we're going to go through a self-examination exercise. Why? Because when she talks about relationships, I know that people are going to be sitting in their seats thinking, I wish my husband was here to hear this, right? No, you're there. What are you going to do differently? How are you going to transform your marriage, right? Because your husband wasn't here or your wife wasn't here, right? But often our tendency is to look at the other person's opportunities, like she was sure speaking to him. I sure wish he was here, while neglecting our own opportunities. So we can point at the horse that's tethered to a plastic chair and we can chuckle. But what if we aren't constantly evaluating our own shortcomings and development opportunities? Our laughter could be camouflaged by our own constrained circumstances. Because it's real easy to laugh at somebody else. But when you go down, what happens? Yesterday, my wife, so we had a long day, and we were going to the after party for the TEDx. And she came back to the car to give me the keys, because she had the keys in her purse, and when she walked away, the car, these new cars, they're like, the keys are leaving. Right? I'm like, hey, babe, I need the keys. So she came back, and when she was walking back, she didn't see the curb, and she tripped, right? Now, the good thing, she landed on her hands and her feet, so she was okay. But what she said is, man, if somebody else had felt like that, I'd have laughed at them, right? I would have been cracking up. But when she fell, her whole circumstance was, man, I'm happy, I'm all right, right? So it's easy to laugh at somebody else but when we look at ourselves and say, wait a second, where am I showing up that way? What is my mental constraint? Then that's when it gets real. Yeah. Now, I did this show years ago when I was on Saturday nights about an elephant, all right, and how elephants are trained not to tug, right? And here's what I mean. An elephant can get up to 13,000 pounds. Think about that. 13,000 pounds, right? One animal can be 13,000 pounds. And so an elephant on a rampage, I saw this video on YouTube of an elephant that went haywire in India, and they couldn't stop it. It basically, the elephant had to calm down when he was ready to calm down. I mean, he was tearing stuff up, walking through things. They couldn't stop it, right? And my wife just said private story on. Don't be telling our private stories. Hey, you trip, babe. It's all right. Everybody trips. But this elephant was tearing things up, right? Now, this elephant stepped into its power, and it made people afraid. By the way, when you step into your power, people around you might get scared. Just a little side point. When you step into your power, they may say you're doing something weird, or you're being destructive, or whatever it is, because you've decided to make a mental shift and take your life to the next level. Don't listen, because that's who you are. That elephant was being who he is, right? He wasn't doing something that was weird. He's an elephant, and y'all got him in a city, and he's supposed to be in the wild. So because he's in the city, he's upset, and he's tearing stuff up. He's being an elephant, okay? But my point is this. How they get most elephants not to behave that way is at birth, they tether them. They chain the leg to a stick or something, and they tether them. And when they're young, they pull, they tug, they pull, they tug, they pull. And what happens is they learn at a young age that they can't get loose from the chain.
Wow.
Right? So then when this elephant develops into this 13,000 pound beast, when the trainer comes over and cuffs the leg, this 13,000 pound beast that could walk away at any moment, right, thinks that he can't get away because he's been conditioned when he was young that he couldn't move. How many of us have mental constraints like that? Okay, yeah, when you were young, you struggled with that. But now you're an adult. Now you can make your own choices. Now you're your own man. Now you're your own woman. Now you can step into a different level of power. Why aren't you stepping into that power? Is it because the power doesn't exist? Or is it because you were taught when you were young that you couldn't? Most of us, all of us have the power. All of us have the power. So please, 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 please don't be that elephant that's restrained by a thin stick, laughing at the horse that's tethered to a plastic chair. Don't be that elephant. And when you find yourself ready to make a judgment about someone else who you see that way, stop. Oh, she could be doing so much more. Oh, he could be taking it to the next level. Oh, I don't get why you don't do this. No. What am I doing? How can I take my life to the next level? How can I show up more powerfully? And ask yourself, can I be judged for the same behavior in the past, present, or near future? Can I be judged for being constrained? And we all have been just like the horse or the elephant at some point. Each and every one of us have performed that duty, right? Standing somewhere, being somewhere where we could walk away, and we didn't because we felt like we were stuck. I mean, I've been there. I've been in some relationships where I was like, I couldn't get out. Yes, I could. You know what I'm saying? So that's the point. We are all powerful, regal, and great. Yet, we've all been constrained by a lack of confidence, ignorance, or fear at some point in our lives. So, when did we break free of the mental constraint? We didn't do it alone. Like, whenever we broke free, we had help. We had help. It took a parent, it took a friend, it took a mentor, speaker, author, radio host, coach, to help us see the limitations of the mental constraints in our lives. And those are the people who told us to dig deeper, push harder, never give up. And now it's our turn. If you're listening, it's your turn to do that for someone else. But don't judge them. Don't judge them. So 2 questions. What development opportunities might you have? I mean, I think about this for myself all the time. What development opportunities might you have? And where is a mental constraint in your life holding you back right now? And as you develop and get the help that you need, be that help for someone else. Reverse judgment and keep the focus on your own self-improvement. All right, we got a phone call. Joy, you're on the line. Good morning.
Hallelujah to Jesus. Hosanna, Hosanna. I just thank God for how I overcome speech impediment and consciousness of my raggedy teeth, which need picture correction very seriously. And so we have to realize that what we do or say, doing it to the glory of our Lord and Savior Jesus Christ, we are so liberated. But when you concentrate on yourself, how you look, how you may sound of ignorance, not speaking articulate as you ought to as an educated person. And so I just thank God that I love my country accent. I'm keeping my deceased dad's language alive. I say things a lot like he used to say. And so anyway, but when raising my son, he was very articulate and called of God to be of an excellent spirit and excellent speech. He used to say, Mother, why do you talk that Ebonic talk? And you know you could talk better. I say, because I like to be free in certain settings at times. And there's time for me to show my educational background. There's time for me just to be like at home. And so I just thank the Lord for I heard Dominic Pongo and even go to Ghana to stay because I heard him on another
Dominic Pongo.
News.
Yeah.
He is great. I thought he was a white man, but then I think the people say that was Dominic. Can't talk. But anyway, I was let somebody else talk. Okay.
All right. Thank you so much. All right. Thanks for the phone call. All right. I got Rose. Rose, good morning. How are you?
Good morning, Linal, to you and Emmanuel. I'm going to try to address Emmanuel's question about the Africans and how they were enslaved and how we the Africans participated in that.
Okay, and can you do it in 3 minutes because we gotta go to break.
Yeah.
Okay.
Oh yeah, sure.
All right.
Just let me start out by saying I have done a lot of reading on African history, so I do have some knowledge. Not saying I have all of it, but I have some. But let me start out by saying that as we see Africa today, as we see African Americans today, we say we are one. At that particular time, they did not see themselves as one.
True.
They were in various countries and various villages, so they had their own culture, their own things of what they did. Therefore, there were some who were more dominant villages that were more dominant than others. And therefore, the dominant village took those and enslaved a lot of those other village people.
Yes.
Therefore, they didn't see themselves as one, and they sold those people.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Not until the word got around that these white people were coming in, enslaving the people and taking them across the waters and doing something horrific to them, did they stop doing that?
Right.
But it took them to, because the Europeans couldn't go into the interior because they didn't know how. They didn't know the land.
Right.
They wouldn't have been able to do that.
Right.
So I'm saying, excuse me. So I just want to let Emmanuel know that's how that happened. And then there's just greed. Some people, it does not matter. We try to blame other folks for everybody what's going on. But no, we had to take a big slice of that pie, you know. But not until they realized what was going on, and it took them a long time to do it, to stop participating in that.
Right.
That's how it happened. Then they found a lot of the people just walking around, and they snatched them.
Yeah. No, and that's very true. And Rose, thanks so much for the phone call. And to her point, one of the beautiful things about exploring your identity, and this is something that everyone who goes to Ghana with me in October will be able to do, is so I know that I'm Burkina Faso from the Laela tribe. The Lialans were a lower caste, and the Masi were that dominant tribe. And so as I began to do my research, it made sense for how my paternal forefather ended up in slavery, right? Because he was in a lower caste. He was in a lower caste tribe in that region. And so this is the power of knowledge. I saw a quote on Facebook this morning that said, it was by Oprah, and it said, part of stepping into your power is fully understanding and knowing your past, right? And that's one of the reasons why I've been so diligent about my own past, not just here in the United States, but what happened in Africa and even what happened before slavery in terms of my own lineage, so I understand who I am, what I come from, and the power I inherently have today as a result of that. So we're going to switch the conversation in a few minutes. Damon Williams will be calling in. He just sent me a text message. He's like, look, man, I'm still in Lincolnshire. He had a show in Lincolnshire last night. So he won't be in the studio live, but he will be on the phone. So looking forward to that conversation. Should be a good conversation. I'm sure he's listening now. And we're going to be talking about, the magic of laughter. The magic of laughter, why laughing is so important, why and how it heals the soul. And I think it's a necessary conversation, man. We've been talking about purpose. We talked about Africa. We talked about slavery. We've been having some very heavy conversations, all necessary, like I said. But, hey, let's laugh. Let's heal and take it all to the next level. And Damon will also be with us at the Murder Mediocrity Summit on Saturday. I mean, amazing lineup, everyone. Amazing lineup. Again, there's only 26 seats left. So if you don't have your seat, you need to be on murdermediocrity.com right now purchasing your seat, because it's going to be a phenomenal day. I promise you. So looking forward to that. Emmanuel, man, looking forward to having you on the next segment with Damon. Good to have Emmanuel in the studio this morning. He's the man behind the scenes for a lot of things that happens at Inspirational Perspective, so appreciate that. And looking forward to having Damon on in a few minutes. So if you're tuned in, make sure you stay tuned, because you will be inspired, you will laugh, and we will have some fun, some well-deserved fun. And make sure you're exploring those mental constraints, because we all have a tremendous amount of power. We all have a tremendous amount of potential and possibility, and there's no reason why we can't or should not be stepping into that and creating powerfully. All right, you're listening to Linal Harris. I'm the host of Inspirational Perspective right here on WVON 1690 AM, the Talk of Chicago.
The Talk of Chicago and the voice of the nation. 1690
All right.
WVON, Birmingham,
Huge
Chicago.
gathering, small counter-protest. I'm Christopher Cruz.
Let's turn this down a little bit. All right, so we are... what I'm going to do is I'm actually going to change this feed out. I just think it's easier in terms of editing later. So for those of you who are watching right now, I'm going to finish out this feed, and then I'm going to start a new feed for the segment with Damon, okay? So make sure you go and join that feed. He'll be on the phone. He'll be live on the phone. And he's calling in right now. I'll see him. So join us on the next one. I'm just going to change the title on this so people don't get confused.